Hey everyone, my name is Matt Russell. I'm a threat intelligence advisor at CrowdStrike. Today I'm going to talk to you about threat intel and the art of war, why knowing yourself isn't enough. In Sun Tzu's famous book, The Art of War, one of my favorite quotes is, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, then from 100 battles comes 100 victories. As an Army veteran, I actually got that tattooed on myself before I went to battle and went to war the first time. What that means is when you know yourself, and whether that comes from an operational perspective in war or from a network perspective in technology, and you know your enemy, then you're able to be exponentially more equipped to win. And from a cybersecurity perspective, we're going to talk about that in the context of threat intelligence. First, we need to set the stage of what is threat intelligence. So, as far as threat intelligence goes, there's two pieces to the puzzle. There is ourselves and the adversary, like the quote says. And one of the primary goals of threat intelligence in general is understanding the relationship between ourselves and the adversary. So us as both individuals and as corporate entities, and the adversary both as an attacker from a technical perspective and large nation state groups from overall goals and strategic objectives. What exactly is threat intelligence broken down into two sort of categories? So we have motive and intent on the left side. These are going to be sort of the strategic side of the house. These are the high level overarching goals and not necessarily the technical IOCs and IOAs that we always come to expect. On the right, that's going to be the technical side. Those are going to be malware hashes, malicious IPs, C2 domains, and stuff like that. So from the adversary perspective, we're looking at the strategic side and motive and intent. What does that mean? What is the adversary's motive? We have e-crime groups, we have hacktivists, we have nation state. Each one of those attackers has a different motive and intent. A nation state doesn't necessarily care about putting ransomware on your computer for 10 or 15 Bitcoin. They're operating with billions and billions of dollars. So that level of effort to get 15 Bitcoin just isn't relevant for them. And a hacktivist group that is against animal testing for cosmetics isn't necessarily concerned about implanting or destroying data on a local government school network because they are trying to collect money. So by understanding the motive and intent of our adversary, we're able to look then at ourselves and see, does that motive and intent fall in line with what we're doing? Are we in an industry where we could be potentially targeted by these groups? So it's very important to understand, to start at the top down, take that 30,000-foot view and look and see, what is it that they're trying to do? And if you don't fall into that group, we can't boil the ocean. We have limited resources, we have limited personnel. So if it doesn't apply to you from the start, and there are potentially other things that are much more applicable to your vertical, your industry, your operating environment, then first focusing efforts on those specific areas that are relevant to you is a much more efficient use of our time and resources. Then on the other side of this, we talk about the capability and infrastructure. So are they using a spam bot to send mass amounts of phishing emails trying to get hooks into your network? Are they doing whaling where they're targeting single high net worth, high value individuals in your company with very well crafted, very targeted emails? What does their infrastructure look like on the back end? How are they delivering these payloads? What are their attack methods? What are their TTPs? And then for ourselves, when we consume this in the form of threat intelligence, I like to delineate with two. There's the strategic intelligence, which is the reporting that we often talk about. So you hear of reports about there's a new piece of malware here, or this e-crime group has now shifted their targets from mass ransomware, whoever we can, to what we at CrowdStrike call big game hunting, or more targeted, more high value payouts. It allows you to understand the overall motive and intent of the adversary. Now we look at the other side, the technical intelligence. That's where we're looking at those atomic indicators that we're going to ingest into our SIM, into our IDS, IPS, those malware hashes, malicious IP addresses, malicious domains. And those are the technical intelligence indicators that we use as part of the overall program to understand what and leverage that based on the capabilities and the infrastructure that the adversaries that we deem to be potential threats to our organization possess. So when we talk about understanding ourselves, and we look at our internal networks, and we think about what it is that we do, we start again from a high level down to a low level. We go across the strategic, operational, and tactical boundaries. From the strategic perspective, we look at our industry. So what things are valuable to an adversary that they would target for us? Again, if we're a pharmaceutical company that does a lot of animal testing, it would be much more interesting to us to understand what hacktivists are doing, what they're targeting, how they're operating. Whereas if I'm a massive financial company, I might be much more concerned about business email compromise or big game hunting, things of that nature, public sector. You have to understand yourself and what it is of value that you and your business produces, you and your business own, and the actions that your business undertakes that would be of potential value to an adversary. And then we move to the operational phase, where we're looking at the critical assets, the people, process, technology. So how will the adversary gain their foothold? Are they going to do it through our people? Are they going to exploit the insecurity of people's willingness to click on an email, or people's willingness to pick up a thumb drive in a parking lot? Are they going to exploit a weak process? Do we not have good email controls? Do we not have an email spam blocker? Do we not have some security appliance in place or a process in place that prevents an attacker from targeting us? And then lastly, technology. Do we have insecure, outdated technology? Are we not patching? Do we have open ports that aren't monitored? So there's that whole stack of people, process, technology that attackers, while they may not only stick with one of those, there may not just be spam emails, there may not just be exploiting weak passwords as a process. Attackers and threat actors tend to have TTPs that they follow that generally tend towards one or another. So if the threat actor that you believe to be the largest threat to your organization, 95% of their attacks are caused by spam email, then potentially that gives you and your decision makers the ability to say, okay, well, we don't have a great spam filter currently. We need to increase our spend or our budget for that, so that we can be cognizant of the potential attacks that are coming from that vector. And you can give your decision makers and leadership the actual evidence to support those decisions. And then lastly, we talk about the tactical side, the access vectors. So the actual physical attack that occurs. So are they intercepting something in our supply chain? Are we a manufacturer? And from the component parts that we then assemble in our factory, is there somebody that's able to interdict that and insert something malicious? So the access vectors are very personal to our organization, and it's a good exercise to kind of look at this from a wide lens and determine, really where are the vectors that we are the most weak to, and how do they align to our adversary? So now we switch over and let's talk about the adversary. The adversary, again, we'll look at it from the strategic, operational, and tactical views. From the strategic side, again, we're talking motive and intent. What is it about you that makes the adversary want to target you? Is it something that you have and possess that's valuable from a monetary perspective? If your attacker is motivated by money and you have something valuable that they think they can access or can reduce your access to in order to get you to pay to regain access, then that is their motive and their intent. If, again, looking at hacktivists, if their motive is to stop deforestation, then their intent is to attack your ability to continue logging in an area. Whatever it is, you have to understand what it is your core competencies are, and what about you makes you an appealing a victim to an attacker. And when we look at this, combining that motive and the intent complete that picture from the strategic level of the adversary. Operationally, again, what capabilities and infrastructure do they have? there are different levels of attackers. We generally consider APTs, nation state level actors, to sort of be the most advanced. They have the resources, the bandwidth, the training, the knowledge to really put together zero-day attacks that they've engineered themselves. They have massive, massive resources behind them. Whereas some kid that downloaded a exploit kit from the dark web is able to do some very automated, lightweight things that may be blocked. So is it necessarily, do you have to be concerned if you have a large, well defended network? Do you necessarily need to be concerned about some of those low level attacks if they're not being relevant to your industry or your adversary's motive and intent? Understanding their capabilities and infrastructure allows you to make decisions about how you defend yourself. And then lastly, we talk about the TTPs. Again, what are the specific steps that the adversary will take in order to gain access and gain entry into your network and conduct actions on the objective? So understanding all of those pieces together, again, both from yourself and the adversary, are key in really crafting a solid defense of your network. Briefly, we'll talk where do we get intel from? So, we say all these things, but at the end of the day, how are we generating this intelligence? So we look at about 6 different ways for this to occur. So endpoint telemetry, what is happening from the endpoint, what's being detonated, what's being written to disk. You can take those hashes, you can take all of those processes and create and derive intelligence from that. You can do this on your own as well. You can create your own Yara rules, you can create your own snort rules. You can do things based on what you're seeing live in your network and be proactive and create intelligence from that. Incident response, after something occurs, you go back, you conduct the forensic you conduct the analysis of how that attack occurred, what vector did they use. All of that is intelligence. If you found that it was a phishing email, then perhaps you conduct more regular phishing exercises at your company. If it was a rogue access point, then perhaps you conduct more rogue access point discovery. So incident response is a great place to generate your own intelligence. And this is all things that you can do as a threat intelligence analyst, or as a SOC analyst, or just as a person that has access to your network and this kind of data. You don't necessarily have to pay somebody else to create threat intelligence for you. These are all activities you can do on your own. Malware and forensic analysis. Again, if you have malware that you see and that you block, you can detonate it in a sandbox. You can create and generate IOCs based off of that. There's a lot of things that you can do forensic wise. You can look at the processes that were run. You can go back, look through logs. There's a lot of ways that you can look at all of these different pieces of data that are occurring day in and day out in your organization and effectively turn that into more targeted defensive measures that you can take. Again, network telemetry, SIMs, IDS, IPS, all of that kind of stuff. You can DLP solutions to some degree. All of these you can use as technical indicators. And now these last two, the human intelligence and open source intelligence. Human intelligence is, we hear oftentimes people talk about the deep dark web and how scary that is. I would attribute that to a buzzword obsession, but there is some relevance to that. However, the things that are occurring on the deep dark web that impact at scale aren't occurring in these 1,000-person forums where nearly anybody can join. They're occurring in closed door Jabber chats and WhatsApp chats with 3, 5, maybe 10 people, but they are intimate and it requires a lot of work. That's an activity that your average business just isn't able to do. So these are some things that you could potentially turn to a partner for in order to have more access to this type of data. And then open source intelligence, this is things, that are, Twitter, Pastebin, GitHub, social media, all of those things that, hey, if a certain organization is not happy with a company's practices, they can, they have a large enough social media presence, they can, say, hey, everybody start sending emails to this company, and you can get ahead of the attackers. It's a low cost, it's a very high effort if you don't have the technology, but it's a low cost way to sort of get in and get some of that lightly touching human intelligence, but just understanding the threat landscape from an open source perspective. So we kind of define the capability areas across 3 domains. Our network, and we talked about this to some degree already, but when we look at our network, attack and intrusion analysis. So it's the capability to understand the threat indicators and the malware and the technical data that the enemy is using. We then turn this into automated machine defenses, whether it's via IDS, IPS, whether it's tuning our email and spam filters, whether it's integrating atomic indicators into your SIM. This is the technical data that we can derive from things that are actually occurring on our network to then take an attack and turn it into a defense. Across the internet, it's threat intelligence monitoring. So we're looking at things for where is my brand, where is my company being targeted, what is being said about it, is the general sentiment positive, is the general sentiment negative, and it allows us to get a little bit of advanced warning. Again, going back to does a popular hacktivist have a large following and they've mentioned your company as part of a plan that they have to grow their organic base and raise their followers in a call to action against your business. It allows you to, the threat intelligence monitoring allows you to be proactive and get that early warning indicator that something may be happening around you. And then lastly is the adversary, and that's the threat intelligence reporting. And it gives you the broader strategic understanding of what it is the adversary does, what it is the adversary wants, and how the adversary does it. And reporting can help at both the analyst level, but I find that reporting is one of the most valuable tools that we as security practitioners have in order to go to our leadership. And when we need to ask for more money or we need to ask for that tool, we know as security practitioners why we need it. And we can explain to somebody why we need it, but until you have the empirical evidence, the actual reporting, the validated reporting from real life scenarios, real life attacks, real life telemetry, it doesn't carry that same weight. But when you have threat intelligence reporting that says, well, board, here are the 5 largest breaches. All of these breaches occurred because of X, Y, and Z. We're covered in X and Y, but we're not covered in Z. If we don't want to be the 6th largest breach, we need to make that investment. So threat intelligence reporting is powerful for the analyst, but it's even more powerful for you to take to decision makers to give you the ammunition you need to really get what you want. And then so we'll define the stakeholders in this. We talked a little bit about the analysts and whatever. So CrowdStrike, we're a big racing company, so I've kind of framed this up across the mechanic, race car driver, and owner. So at the tactical level, again, we're talking a SOC analyst, part of your low level tier 1 SIM, firewall teams, all of that. The people that are doing analysis on indicators, very technical, atomic, static, behavioral threat indicators, both doing analysis, monitoring, and ingestion of those indicators into your automated defense systems. So these are the people that are very hands-on, very technical, writing code, integrating feeds, running the APIs, doing all of that hands-on work that really bolster our automated defense situation. Then operational, they're focused on understanding the capabilities, infrastructure, and TTP. So they're the ones that are sort of guiding our efforts as analysts or as security practitioners. These levels of the threat hunting team, your vulnerability management team, these guys are prioritizing and leverage and deploying resources as appropriate to the areas where they believe, based on their understanding of the adversary and their motive, intent, and capabilities, applying resources where they need to be applied in a limited cost and or resource constrained environment. Then lastly, we talk about the strategic level, and this is your decision makers, your C-suite, your board, some of your senior IT leadership. These are the people with the money that are managing large numbers of people, personnel, and budget, and they need to understand the strategic high-level things so that they, again, going back to an informed decision, they need to be informed on what the threats are that are occurring now. We oftentimes hear about we need to shift left, we need to get ahead of the attacker, we need to do all these proactive things. Well, at the end of the day, we're never going to get ahead of the attacker. The way this works is the attacker figures out a weakness, they exploit that weakness, we determine how they exploited the weakness, and then we stop that. Then the attacker goes and finds another weakness and then exploits that weakness. And it's a never-ending cycle. But what threat intelligence allows you to do, especially at the strategic level, is it allows you to get ahead of the trends. It allows you to know where things are moving because, again, we all have limited bandwidth from personnel and monetary perspectives. So by effectively leveraging threat intelligence, we're able to deploy resources in the highest areas of risk in our organization, and being flexible is the most proactive way that you can create a solid defense against potential adversarial actions in your network. So one exercise that we like to do is sort of juxtapose the two, adversary and ourselves, in somewhat of a matrix. And what this allows you to do is take a high-level mapping of those things that we've discussed from the strategic, operational, and tactical perspective. So from ourselves, determine what is your industry, what is it that you guys are doing that would create a motive and intent for an adversary. And in these, the cool graphic icons, they can go away and they can get replaced with words or other pictures, or a picture and some words. But what this sort of matrix allows you to do, and I do recommend going through this kind of exercise, even if you don't use this exact format, what this exercise does is it gives you a very good current state analysis of what is your posture comparing yourself and the adversary. So it allows you at multiple levels to understand what your posture is, where your weaknesses are, and where you should be looking for either increased activity, increased investment, or just understanding the general trends and vulnerabilities that you could be subject to by the adversary. So going through this exercise of mapping the adversary to ourselves at these three levels is very, very valuable. And whether it's on a graphic representation like this or a matrix, however you choose to do it, I do highly recommend that you understand and map those two things together, because it gives an unequivocally clear picture of what we need to do as a security apparatus, and how do we better address security from a holistic perspective across the enterprise. So as we wrap up here, I wanted to talk about how we really operationalize some of the pieces of threat intelligence that we receive on a daily basis, whether it's from a vendor or internally derived intelligence. So when we look at this, we take threat intelligence as sort of the overarching concept, and all of these different pieces, these arrows that you see, they're all part of the threat intelligence apparatus, things that you can derive from threat intelligence. So we have IOC, snort, YAR rules. So those fall under that tactical level. These are the things that integrate into your SIM, into your IDS, IPS. And by going through an exercise like this as well, if you don't currently do a lot in the threat intelligence space, or you have a threat intelligence vendor, and you take this and you map what your threat intelligence vendor is, maybe your threat intelligence vendor is covering down on all of these. Maybe they're really good at some and not really good at others, and you need to figure out how to supplement that across, whether you're going to develop that internally or potentially purchase a new threat intelligence feed. Going through this exercise gives you sort of visibility into what threat intelligence is, how it's used, and then ensuring that you're covering down on all of those domains and potential use cases for threat intelligence. And to take an example, so A capability and infrastructure, operationalization. So we're going to talk about a botnet. So the Go spam bot that is used to deliver the Ryuk ransomware. So one of the things that we offer at CrowdStrike is we have access to botnets, and we can alert your business on whether or not your IP or your domain is in there. A lot of vendors do this. You can do this on your own as well. But what does that mean for us as decision makers? So from the strategic perspective, we can geo-block policy formation phishing awareness. If we know that our IP space is actively being targeted by a spam bot, then we have intelligence around that spam bot. Where is that coming from? Who is operating it? What do they do? How are they doing it? If we know that the phishing emails are all purchase order numbers, require remittance, we know what the header looks like. All of that information is part of threat intelligence, and so we can geo-block. We can say, okay, well, while this campaign is active, we're going to wholesale block at the firewall any IP traffic, email traffic originating from these geos. Policy formations, okay, as policy internally, because we know that these spam campaigns are using a certain nomenclature in the email title of PO, underscore 3 letters, then 3 numbers. We can change our naming convention for the way that we send emails internally, so that there's no confusion on our team or across our organization that this could be a legitimate email. Again, then you can send out emails. If you tell your employees that hey, we do phishing exercises, it's bad if you get caught phishing, all of that, it's great, but we get lazy. At the end of the day, humans are the weakest link. But if we know actively that there is a campaign against us, then we can send out an email to our employees. Hey, listen, we are actively being targeted right now. Please be extra vigilant this week. We will let you know when this is over, but please be extra vigilant. Don't click on links. Little simple things like that have massive impact, because at the end of the day, it only takes one person to click. And from operationally, it helps us, again, at the lower levels. It helps develop our use cases for going to our leaders. Maybe we don't have a domain monitoring service. Maybe we're not doing it ourselves. Maybe we're not hiring somebody. So maybe we need to add that in for another use case. Maybe we have a very low level, very low cost email spam filter. Potentially, okay, we know this spam campaign is going to occur. We need to get the $75,000 or $100,000 investment to up our spam blocking capabilities, and then potentially pay for, if you don't have the internal capacity to do that, then it gives you justification for potentially getting third-party monitoring. But to sort of wrap this whole thing, from a simple alert of your IP is being targeted by a known spam bot campaign, it leads down so many potential paths from such what seems like an important but small piece of information can massively change the way that you and your team operate. And then lastly, we'll talk about sort of how do we take threat reporting and operationalize that, because well, oftentimes, especially as threat intel vendors, everybody loves threat reporting. That's the bread and butter, right? Oh, threat reports. But what does that actually do? How do we take threat reporting from a buzzword into something that makes us more secure as an organization? And so again, from the strategic perspective, it allows us to make business decisions. If we are considering opening a business in another country or in another region, and we don't necessarily understand the specific threats that are facing that country or that region, then we don't know what to look for or what defenses to put up or what we need to be cognizant of entering into that market. Also for business decision, if you are doing a merger and acquisition, what is the threat profile of the company you're considering buying? Are they known targets? Where are they being seen? Are they being spoken about in underground forums on a regular basis? And maybe that would make it a more risky decision. So it gives your leaders the ability to make significant business value focused and strategic decisions from something as simple as threat reporting. And then again, technology investment. Leaders expect us as security practitioners to come to them with fully fleshed business cases. They are not there to decide what we need, how we need it. They are there to make business decisions that are best for shareholders or are fiscally responsible from the country for the company. And what our job is to ensure that we are presenting those leaders with the information they need, contextualized with real, tangible data of operations and intelligence that are occurring in real time in the wild, so that they can have the justification, the business justification to make those technology investments. Hiring and team. If we don't have a very robust security team, and we're seeing that our business is actively being targeted in these different campaigns, then maybe we don't have a SOC analyst right now, and it's somebody's side job. Well, that gives you justification. Hey, we really need another person here to triage these alerts because X, Y, and Z. It gives you a lot of power to take real information and real intelligence to your decision makers, and give them the power to make informed decisions that are directly impacting your overall security posture. And then lastly, the operational side, vulnerability management. We can't boil the ocean. So, patching is always important, but if we find that, unused ports are becoming a more common attack vector, then maybe we need to, if we don't currently scan, or we don't have a scanning tool, or scanning once a month, maybe we need to up our cadence on port scanning. Incident response. It allows you to go back and take some of that threat reporting from other people who have experienced a breach or experienced an attack by this threat actor. What did they do? What did their actions on the objective look like? And instead of you as an incident responder having to go through and try to piecemeal everything, you get a head start. You learn the lessons from other people's mistakes and other people's misfortune. And then threat monitoring. Again, it allows you to deploy your resources more effectively internal to your network to monitor more diligently in those areas where you're either weak or where your enemy is strong. And again, it comes from that dichotomy of knowing yourself and knowing your enemy. Just knowing yourself is not enough, and just knowing the enemy also is not enough. And then the last thing I was going to talk about from a way that you can do things internally that's very easy is sandboxing. And this is just the very tactical level of things. You are able to create your own threat intelligence. While threat intelligence vendors are great, I work for one, we are great, you don't have to go out and do things. You can get a sandbox. There are free sandboxes that you can use. And all of this creates intelligence that you can use. And every journey starts with the first step. And if your business is small, does not have a large budget, does not have a large team, then getting that all of that reporting and all of those vendor generated things is just not in the cards for you. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a responsibility to do things to generate your own intelligence, your own threat intelligence, understand all of those pieces. And sandboxing is one of those things that allows you very quickly, very easily to start generating indicators of compromise. It's a word everybody loves. And if you as a practitioner start generating your own indicators of compromise based on things that you're seeing in the network, you can start ingesting those into your SIM, and then once you start blocking on those, again, it all goes back to providing you the real actionable data. Hey, we detonated 100 pieces of malware that we saw come across our network in the sandbox, and we generated these IOCs, and we generated these YARA rules. We found these on our network, and we blocked these 50 future attacks with it. It would be really great if we could get X, Y, and Z, additional spend, additional personnel, additional feeds, whatever that may be. So sandboxing is one of the easy ways that you can start playing in that very tactical, hands-on IOC, IOA based space and immediately make an impact in your organization. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all. I appreciate your time and thank you again for listening. Have a great day.